Hello. Hello, and welcome to another Monday episode of Addiction Recovery Hope Capital, all capitals HOPE, and resources. And I'm Heston Cherry, and I've got an awesome guest today that's like famous in the recovery world, Jennifer Jones. This how she always says. That's how I Jones.
This is how we Jones.
This is how we
Yeah.
Jones. I always mess
We're
that up.
collective, really.
Yeah, because of your kids.
Yeah, and
Because-
my husband. Yeah,
Oh, and your husband, and you're always cheering for your daughter.
always.
Always. That's my
Always.
girl.
Both my girls. Yes,
Oh, you got two girls.
I have two girls.
Nice. I'm good to see.
Yeah.
We're learning more about each other already.
There you go.
So we got a good story today. I asked Jen, and she was brave enough to come on and speak about a subject that's tough in addiction recovery. It's part of recovery. I think even if it's not a 12-step program, it is making amends,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard because you've probably tried to make amends as part of your first in recovery instead of doing it later as you've changed your life a little bit.
Right.
So there's an order that you should do it. But go ahead, tell us about yourself. Tell us where you're at, how you've been, how you survived your recovery, how long you've been in recovery.
Okay. Well, I just picked up 4 years clean on Sunday. So, I mean, my story's the same I used, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got clean through a 12-step fellowship. I was never offered treatment. I never had anybody
Same.
show up and and bring me to treatment or whatever, because I had done so much damage to my family and my husband and everyone. So it didn't. I mean, I don't blame him really, but so I got a sponsor. I did the things that I was told, and I've been of service and things like that. But what made me think about picking this topic was because we were talking about the stuff that I do in the community. And for me, and I don't even think I realized that it was an amends, because I took so much from society in general. And I'm probably going to incriminate myself slightly during this. So there's that. But when I was out there using, I did what we do, which is anything to perpetuate using. And, I stole from family members. I'm willing to talk about, like, I stole guns and things like that from my dad, and that he's like a gun collector. And
I have a similar story.
things like that. Like, I took and took and took. Like my high school English teacher, I had him send me money and told him some tale about an abusive dude. And of course, there was an abusive dude in the scenario, but like that's
There's always half truths.
well, yeah, I mean, he was there, and he was there trying to get money with me. So there's all of these things that happened, and of course, when I first got clean, my husband and I weren't together because
That's hard.
I'm an a-hole, and he was done, and I'm really grateful that my dad and my husband and my close friends were done with me. And I'll get to a couple of things with my friends that they tried to do while I was using. I have one friend who he called my husband and said, hey, she showed up in Salt Lake. I was on the run for a while, and she showed up in Salt Lake, and she's a mess, and we want to get her into treatment. And my husband's like, I don't care what you do. Like, just do it. It's not my problem anymore. So I had a couple of friends that tried to like organize treatment. So that was kind of a half truth in the beginning. It didn't work out. I wasn't ready to go.
Yeah.
And I
You have to be.
I probably would have like karate chopped him and ran if they tried. So, but what I do know is that when I got clean, I found out that there was a couple people behind the scenes that were trying to do those things, and I had no idea. But when I got clean, I lived in a sober living situation because my husband didn't want anything to do with me, and my probation officer was like, "You're not living there," because I had used there. And not that he was involved in that, but he enabled me a little bit to stay or whatever. You're welcome, the whole family, because I'm going to know all the things now, but they already do. So so I lived in sober living. And, of course, when I spent my last stint in jail is what really helped me. The last time I used was while I was living in a sober living situation. And, my husband and I were kind of talking, and I was spending time with my daughter a little bit, but not overnight. I expected everyone to forgive me right away for having, 30, 60, 90 days clean or whatever, and saying, like, hey, why don't you let me in your house? And I couldn't figure out why people wouldn't answer my phone calls. But for the last 5-7 years, like the only time I ever called was to, try to extort money out of them. So, or something, or break into their house or whatever, And so that was a hard lesson for me in the beginning. And so I just kind of, did a living amends for the most part. Just stay clean no matter what, and try to show up for them.
Prove it.
Right. Like you can't, I can say I'm sorry, but like, I think one of the greatest things that my sponsor is the one that said it. She said, take a dinner plate and throw it on the floor and smash it, and say you're sorry to it.
Yeah.
And does that put it back together? And it doesn't, so it's changed behavior. And so, it took a long time, for me to change my behavior, honestly. I moved back in with my husband, and a couple of months later, and it was sort of I needed somewhere to go, and I had been clean for a little bit, and so he was willing to like give me a place to stay.
Yeah.
And so the first real amends, I think, other than the living amends, was with my daughter. I struggled. I had been absent for a long time. She was 8 when I got clean, and she didn't believe a word I said, which is, I would come. I was one of those people that went to the store for 2 weeks, hey, I'm going to go grab a gallon of milk. And I ended up in Vegas for 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she didn't believe me. And so the first couple months, I would wake up to her like creepy, like standing over me in, in bed or whatever. And I'd jump up, and it's because she wanted to see if I was still there.
Yeah.
And so, I started talking to other women in recovery about how to make that amends prior to being at that part of my recovery. And thankfully, someone had been through something similar. And I wrote her a letter, and I didn't ever get to read it. But what happened was she started going to meetings and functions and stuff with me, and so she knew the people in the fellowship as well. And someone had overdosed and died, and we were at a meeting, and people were sharing about it, and visibly upset. And she had said, Mom, I'm just glad that you didn't die. Like, I'm glad that we're not talking about you. And so that's when I made my amends to her. I didn't leave because I wanted to. And I wasn't making excuses, but like, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to drag her through the mud anymore. At one point, her dad wanted to tell her that I was dead because it was easier,
Sure.
So that was my first amends with my daughter. And it has taken 4 years for her to believe a word I say, honestly. Mm-hmm. Just show up. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm there.
There every time.
Yeah,
on time.
On time. If I can't be there for work circumstances or whatever, I make sure she knows ahead of time. And so it's been a process, and I had to not make it about me and let her work through that stuff.
Yeah, right. Because it would be easy to take some of the things personal. How dare you not forgive me? Mm-hmm. I've been 2 years or whatever, but that's
right.
You got to allow them to get it, to understand it, as no matter how long it takes them.
Yeah, and it definitely is. She'll probably watch this or whatever. So sorry, Savvy, but she doesn't believe what I say all the time because I lied for so long, and I don't fault her for that now. She's a little bit older, and she's very perceptive, and so she gets it. She gets it when children that she goes to school with have family members that are using and things like that. So, but it's been a process. I've had to show up this whole time for her, as well as my stepdaughter. I missed everything for years and years. Thankfully, my husband took my daughter to soccer, so that's how we have mutual acquaintances because of soccer. And another way I had to make an amends that way was they knew I was in jail. So Savannah played soccer in our little town, and they knew I was in jail, and missing. You know what I'm saying? And so then I show up on the scene, and I feel like a dirtbag or whatever because I've
everyone's staring at you.
Well, yeah, and they probably were,
yeah,
but not for those reasons, And it turns out, over the last couple of years of showing up for soccer, everyone has someone in their family or at their place of employment or whatever that has been through this. And
everyone.
I'm gonna be honest, I owe that poor soccer coach an amends because I went off. I probably had 6 months clean. I was like, why won't you let my kid be on the soccer team? I hope he hears this. I'll tell Travis later that I talked about him. But
I had to do it to my son's football coach like 3 weeks ago.
yeah, same. Yeah. So, I mean, this is 3 years ago that this happened.
Yeah.
But I just made an assumption that he wouldn't understand. And that wasn't fair either, because obviously, like, everyone has people that they know that have struggled. And so, but I just keep showing up, you know. One of my favorite things that I do is I pick up garbage everywhere, all the time.
I love it.
My children think I'm crazy, so we go
Rightfully
camping.
so.
Yeah, yeah. Also at the soccer field, I will chase down a piece of plastic playing soccer because I threw so much garbage out the window, you know, literally and metaphorically, really. And so I will I'll run down the soccer field to get that bag, and then just Savvy and her friends. There goes your mom picking up trash, you know.
Yeah.
I pick up cigarette butts. I have some in my pocket right now.
I love
They're
it.
not mine. But
Yeah.
I'm disgusting, and I will pick them up because it just did so much damage to society, you know. And I'm almost neurotic about it, and sometimes I feel out of hand. But whatever.
Yeah.
So there's that. I am really weird about following the law, mostly because I broke it so often, and I still have some financial amends to make as far as like parking tickets and things like that in other areas. And I've started paying those back because I want to, pay back, clean my side of the street up in Phoenix or wherever that parking ticket is. And now when I break the law, I panic. Like I ran a red light 2 nights ago in Park City, and my friend's like, I can't believe you just ran that red light. And I'm like, I know. And I like laid in bed and thought about it or whatever. But I'm just trying to give back what I took, plus some.
Well,
you
you've
know,
changed.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
I think, Jen, what I'm hearing is you got a very soft heart, and you want to do good in everything you do, which is a wonderful characteristic.
Oh my God, I feel like you're like letting the cat out of the bag on the radio about me having a big heart.
I think you do.
I prefer to pretend sometimes, but yeah, I've been asked to do really weird things in recovery, like when we did I want to talk about the Sleep Out for Youth Futures.
Yeah, I want to hear about it.
So a couple of years ago, I have a friend in northern Utah, in Ogden, that she's in recovery, and I saw on Facebook that she was doing this Sleep Out for Youth Futures up there, and I really wanted to do it, and it was in March, and I can't remember, there was something that happened that I couldn't do it, and so when my friend Sherry reached out to me, and she has a soft spot for the homeless population, she's worked with that population.
Switchpoint and stuff?
Yeah, she's worked at Switchpoint, and that's her people. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Mine is substance use and people that have been on probation, like and people in recovery, and hers is the homeless population, which they coincide. But
Yes.
so she asked me to do it, and she's like, we have to pay $500 to sleep outside, and I was like, I don't know, but.
Yeah.
Through lots of friends and family, we raised quite a bit of money, at least more than I thought we were going to. And we slept on a piece of cardboard. It was really...
It was at the mall, right?
Yeah, it was.
Here in town.
It was here in town. It was by the movie theater.
How cold did it get?
It was 33.
Oh, that was the coldest at night?
That was the coldest at night, and we had a piece of cardboard, and we had to, stay on it or whatever. And I was... I don't know about you, but sometimes memories like pop up about things like from our past. And the last time
Always.
I slept on a piece of cardboard was I broke into a greenhouse in Denver, Colorado. I was homeless in Denver. I had stolen my dad's car, so there's that. You
said your story sounds so much like my wife's. It's like everything you say. Twins.
Listen, there's always a stolen car, or not always, but anyway. My dad never called the police about the car being stolen. I don't know why, because it got impounded anyway. So I broke into this greenhouse with this fella, we'll say, and we had nowhere to stay because the car had been impounded, and I slept in this greenhouse on elementary school, and then they woke up in the morning, and I thought, like, this is how I get arrested, in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, Oh, that's a whole nother thing. Maybe I'll just go into that. So when I was in Denver, I was on the run from AP&P again. Like, apparently it's my thing to run. And at that point, I had kind of like towed the water of recovery a little bit. Like, I started going to meetings after I got out of jail that time, and I had made some friends. And so I I probably call. There were lots of people that sent me money while I was in Denver, and I used with that money. And finally, at the end, I just called the woman that's now my sponsor and some other people in the fellowship and asked them to just get me home, for my daughter's birthday. And so I rode a Greyhound home, and I was arrested for the last time like 4 days later. So that's part of my story too. I probably now that I think about it, I owe you guys $150 for that bus ticket. So we'll work on that next. For my financial amends. And the funny thing is that when I said that about like, let's talk about making amends, I thought about 50 more that I need to make.
Yeah. You'll never, that's what I love about recovery you're explaining, everything you're explaining is willing. You're willing to do this and make these amends no matter what depths and what lengths you have to go. You're going to do it, but it may take the rest of your life. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I also think too, like not everybody's willing to accept them.
Amen.
So the only amends that's ever been making.
I understood you. I was right with you.
Were you attracted? Thank you. I'm so glad. The only amends that's ever been made to me was by, let's see, I'm going to be cautious here, but a gentleman that I had dated when I was really young, and he hit me, right? And so when I was living in sober living, my mom called and said, "Hey, so-and-so's looking for you." And I was like, oh, no. You know what I mean? And she said, "Well, yeah, he's really persistent." And so then he found me on Facebook and messaged me and said, "Hey, can I call you?" And he made a direct amends to me. And I was really new in recovery, and it was really beautiful. Yeah. Since then, I've tried to make some formal amends, like with my dad. My dad, I couldn't even tally the amount of money after like bail and just paying for groceries and car payments and whatever. Like I tied my dad's bank account to our house payment, and my husband didn't know because I was doing all the finances. And so my dad paid my house payment for a year. So there's that. So I owe my dad this great financial amends. And every time I try to do it, he buys me something.
Yeah, I did. I tried to tell my dad. I sat down with my dad. I said, "Dad, I want to talk to you about making amends." And he said, "Oh, you don't have to. You've changed your life." I said, "No, it says it right here in the rules. I have to." So, right. Dad, hear me out. This is where we're at.
Right. So I've tried several times, like, hey, because it's a lot of money, right? So I have to have a payment plan, right? And I said, let me start paying you back at least financially, or even something once a month, or just whatever. And he said no, and then he bought me a laptop. And then I tried again, and then I ended up with a PC and that I can't run, so don't feel bad about the technology thing.
I'm horrible.
But it's been continuing like that. But I will say that so some things have gone on in my dad's life recently, and my dad is he's getting older and he's on oxygen, and I'm going to get a little verklempt here, and I might cry a little bit, but I get to make an amends to my dad. Like, he has no choice now. So my dad is going to come stay with us in December, and of course he says things like, "Well, I'll bring the car and we can, whatever." And I said, you can't do anything about me buying the groceries or paying the light bill, or because that's kind of how I had to go with him, like, you let me do something. And so it's super magical that I get to do that.
Doors open when you're doing right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tiny home living. It's basically like a boxcar out there. So,
okay.
No, it's lovely. My children are really excited about it, and I just never thought that I'd be able to do that, because every time I try, there's like an Amazon package shows up at the house with something. And it's so crazy. I haven't made some really important amends to me, and I was thinking about this too. When I made out my list of people that I had harmed, my sponsor helped me go through, because I probably had your name on it. I was like, and I did this one time, and there's some things that I still need to do, and I haven't found the words or the action to do it yet.
It's a process.
Yeah, my husband wanted to read my 4-step. That's how he wanted me to make amends. I don't know if you guys. I mean, I work the 12 steps in a certain fellowship, and I said no, like, that's not going to help,
Yeah.
But I've made formal amends to him, as well as just living amends. Just showing up.
It's my wifey's favorite thing is living amends.
Right. I mean, and honestly, sometimes that's all I got. I had a friend who I'll just say that I did him wrong while we were using, and he passed away while I was incarcerated. And so, you know, I get to stay clean. That's my living amends. I had a son that passed away. That's part of my story. I'm not going to say that's why I used, but I used behind it for a long time.
Well, we hide from pain. That's why we used a lot.
Absolutely. And so, you know, as a result of that pain, I think, you know, I didn't show up for my girls as much. And I know they felt it because we've had discussions about how they felt like second to him and he was dead. So I get to make an amends to them and him, and we honor my son together, and I get to show up for them and make sure that they're, you know, I know that my son would want me to show up for them, you know. And so that's definitely my living amends to him. When I was using, my son was cremated, which was our choice or whatever, but and when I was using, I wouldn't wear his ashes. Like, I just wouldn't wear them. And
respect thing.
yeah, I think it was just I wasn't with his dad, and I wasn't, you know, I mean, I wasn't doing anything good. So I think that was it. And so I started wearing his ashes I'm not wearing them today, which is unfortunate, but when I got clean and we started doing things with his ashes, like taking him places, you know.
Cool.
It's super cool. It's been really amazing because my grief was mine and I couldn't share that with people. And I like anyone, you know, even my husband, like, I owe him an amends for having it always be about me. And when I got clean, I had to ask him, you know, how do you feel on these days, you know? And so, you know, I started sharing that with my daughters. They asked, my stepdaughter was like a year old, I think, when he was born, and 2 when he died. And Savannah wasn't born yet. And so we started sharing that with them. And as a result of that, like, they feel a part of, you know, of him. Yeah. And so that's been super amazing as well.
Healing. It sounds healing.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
It's been really cool. So, and as far as like, just a lot of my stuff is really funny. So I do stuff with drug court and for work. And I used to talk crap about drug court, which is even funnier. So when I got the job, I was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? I'm looking up.
I've learned to never say never.
Oh my gosh. And I think some of it was just a resentment because they wouldn't allow me to do that program because of, at the time, like, some of the things and the charges and the whatevers. Yeah. But it's been really amazing to do that and just to give back to the community.
Now you're helping the people in drug court, correct?
Yes. And I love my job. I also, you know, I was thinking about, so two of the people that were trying to help me get into treatment, I helped one of them just recently entered residential treatment in northern Utah. Mm-hmm. His mom and I have been talking about where to send him and things like that. And so I connected her to a couple of places. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, you know.
Yep, it's a start.
It's a start, and he also sent me money. I don't know. I don't have a lot of friends that didn't send me money when I was on the run or using. So, you know, please be patient. I'll get to that financial amends someday. He wanted me to donate the money to something, and so I did. And my English teacher from high school, I reached out to him over a couple of years, and he wouldn't respond, and then he finally responded recently. And I said, you know, how can I make this financial amends to you and your wife? And he said, no, just, you know, keep on doing what you're doing. And I was like, I was kind of insistent, which I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I'm a pushy lady. So I was like, please just let me do something. And, you know, he wouldn't. So I guess I'll just wait that one out too and see how it goes. I have a couple of things in mind, but
what I'm hearing, Jen, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's not just one way to make an amend. You're making amends to people that have passed away. You're making amends in different ways. You're making amends to people that financial amends. You're making amends, emotional amends. You're making friendship amends. There's a lot of different ways to make amends, right?
I hope so, because I don't know how to just do it, you know. I wanted to write everybody a letter because I'm fairly articulate, but it felt kind of like BS because I'm fairly articulate. You know what I mean? And when I was using in other things, I'm pretty sure I use my words to get away with more.
We're master manipulators.
Oh, absolutely. And so now I'm trying to use my powers for good instead of evil, you know. But I think I like you made a comment about my boots. My boots are an amends to myself, actually. Nice. in a roundabout way. My sponsor might question that one, but they were. And I've also recently started doing some dental work, and of course my husband's helping with the payments and stuff, but I pay for the insurance that takes care of that, and so I'm doing some of these things to repay myself for
I'm
the
right
damage
back with
done.
you.
Yeah.
I've got it's awful, but I've got these 4 or where my start. These 4 front teeth were my start, and I want to work back like 4 more.
Yeah.
And then just a little bit at a time.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to be able to eat again. You know what I mean? Like just in
have
general.
molars.
Yeah. I know. I don't think people that are not in recovery understand this whole like, well, what happened to your teeth?
Yeah.
Well, what didn't,
Right.
Because it's a thing for sure. I think the dentist thinks I'm crazy.
Mine does.
I went in and cried, just gratitude, because the plan that they worked out was doable and affordable, and even after insurance, it was affordable. And they split it up in such a way, and they didn't talk down to me for not having, a beautiful mouthful of teeth.
Right.
And that was important. I've walked out of dentist for that.
I have
bawling,
one I go to the same lady because she's the only one that has compassion. Well, not the only one, but the one that I've went to that has not even said one bad thing about me, and she just treated me with love and hugs me every time I leave. And I'm like, I'll never go anywhere else.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, when they fixed a couple of them recently, this has just been going on for a couple of months. I cried.
Yeah.
I mean, just tears, look like the crazy lady in the chair, but I spent so long not taking care of myself either, and I think I do a living amends to myself by staying clean every day and showing up for me when I can. But yeah, I think amends look interesting, and I've had lots of strange things happen, or circumstances, or timing for those, so.
Well, I know one way I've watched you from afar. I think I friend requested you on Facebook, I think like a month ago, because you were friends of friends in the recovery community, and I've watched you, and I see you serve till it hurts, and then I think even more of that's when recovering addicts are at their best, when they have that light, they serve until it hurts. They will actually spend money to serve, and do it, and not want a thing for it. And that's what I see you do, Jen.
Oh,
and
thank you.
You're very, very loved in the community. I mean, even everyone I know loves Jen Jones.
Aw.
And it's a tribute to the changes you've made in your life, because I'm sure there was a time when everyone that I know would probably say, I don't like Jen Jones. So it's amazing what recovery can do to one's life, and you sure shine that light, and I am grateful to be your friend. I made a comment about your boots because I said my wife would love those boots because she loves boots, but they are awesome. And Jen, we've got 2 minutes. Do you have anything that you want to add to finish up? Because I'm enjoying the heck out of listening to you.
Oh, I just was going to add that, I think sometimes when people are using or struggling, that they don't know where to go. You know what I mean? And so one of the things that I like to do is collaborate with people in the community. And so it's open enrollment right now for insurance. And so if someone or you want to get treatment, hopefully they can reach out to any of the treatment centers, and they'll help connect them to someone that can get them insurance, or even come to us. Like if you call the Southwest Center and tell them that you're using and that you need an evaluation, they'll help out.
They'll direct you somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I've come to know in all the rehabs around that I know. Recovery centers is there. If you're not the right fit for them, they're going to tell you where to go.
Right, which is why I have amazing relationships with all these people, and sometimes they change where they work, but the relationship stays the same. And I reach out to them all the time. Like, do you know somewhere in northern Utah? Do you, I have a friend that works for treatment centers in northern Utah, but if they can't serve them, we try to help find them somewhere down here. And I work in the public sector, so it's a little different, but we still do the same thing. Like, let's just help each other out and get this person where they need to go. Because
there's that saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And so don't go another day. Call someone, look in the phone book for a recovery place, call that place, and they'll get you somewhere.
Absolutely.
Well, Jen, I thank you once again for coming on, and you're welcome here anytime.
Oh, thank you.
And we'd love to meet the rest of your family. And you keep on This is how we Jones.
This is how we Jones. Yeah.
And the cherries will be cheering you on.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll talk to you all next week, and have a great week and a great Thanksgiving. It's a tough time around the holidays. Hold up. The holidays is tough for recovering addicts.
Mm-hmm.
It's family, and it's a scary time for people. So be careful if you're in recovery. Watch how your mind's working, and call your friend if you go to wrong places in your head. Call a buddy. Call someone and open up, and don't go to extremes. That's it.